Oh, of course, my fucking camera goes off after 30 years of fucking trying to fix. My fault, guys. We are late because I was trying to figure out how to go live on Facebook, but it's not fucking letting me for some reason. So fuck Facebook. And yeah, let's get right into it. You see, as the title says, we're gonna be watching Nick and Joel talk about race realism. This should be interesting. Hopefully, if it's not, then we will be going to Myron at USC, finishing up that episode, or trying to, because they was there for 3 hours basically. So yeah, let's get right into it, boys.
The bitch shaking it, showing it. You this, you that. We laughing at them together. Oh! So stop treating these mother like they mean something.
Let's go to TikTok. All right. This is the second video. Relax. So we're gonna get right into it. Let's see what Nick and Joel are talking about today.
All right, here we are. Blacks, Jews, and whites.
God damn! Already right into it. I like that. I like that.
Race.
Perfect.
Well, as far as race is concerned, obviously very touchy subject, big subject. I would say that race is real. I would call myself a race realist, is where I would start. Because I think that on the right now, even maybe more than the left, we have come to this consensus that race is not real.
Right.
And the message that's pushed is colorblindness is supposed to be the way that we look at each other and the way that we govern the country. But I think that's a mistake. The reality is that race is a biological phenomenon. It's a genetic phenomenon. And there's this narrative people talk about, or a word that people use, they say that race is skin deep. And when we talk about racial differences or racial disparities or racial politics, people like to say things like, well, why should the color of a person's skin matter? And I think the record of the past 60 years in America, with the Civil Rights Act, with the multiracial politics, is that
The Jewish Rights Act.
that we know that for a fact, race is not just skin deep. It's not just different shades of different colors. To the extent that there are different colors, it's a result of a genetic biological difference. And it does reflect other genetic biological differences in appearance, in behavior, in culture, in mindset. And that, I think, is at the center. That question is at the center of politics today, as America has become a multiracial nation.
Right.
Is a country with all these different fundamentally people living together. How exactly are we going to get along, and how great are the differences, and what are they?
Right. I've heard some people
And that's what I was talking to my aunt about. All the time, especially if you ever see a Dr. Umar fucking live, all the time he's like, you need to go to black doctors. I be trying to look for black electricians, black plumbers. But like, he always emphasizes on looking for specifically black people to do the job, because he wants a black person. He trusts black person more. So when Nick says this, I hate when people get so like, oh my God, because I hear this shit all the time. I'd rather have a black doctor. You niggas say it all the time. So it's like, I don't understand why when a white person says it that you get confused, because you say it all, you motherfuckers say it all the time.
say, what if it was the contents of character all along?
Mm.
And not to say in a universal sense, each and every single individual, but that's what we're always doing. When you think of prejudice, it's to prejudge. Like, prejudice in the negative connotation, I think really is, I think it's immoral. But in the technical sense of, like, we're constantly making judgments all day long. And we're also, making prejudgments. And some of those prejudgments can be arbitrary and can be sinful, but then some of them are based off of patterns and statistics and all these things to give us an idea.
I'll say it's just pattern recognition that helps you stay alive. I forgot what it's really called, but if you wasn't using that, people just would be dying. Like, you would just be doing dumb shit if you didn't recognize patterns and understand what's going on. Should I walk down this alley? I know it's kind of dark, and I hear really bad things about alleys and shit. Should I really walk down this alley? Like, it's pattern recognition. You don't want to do dumb shit. You want to do dumb shit's going to happen to you.
Idea of an expectation of something that's foreign or strange to us. So I don't know, but I'd like to have an idea ahead of time. And so I'm going to rely on past experiences. I'm going to rely on averages, those kinds of things. The favorite verse of every liberal who ultimately hates Christ, but it's like, I don't believe your Bible. The meme, I don't believe your Bible, would never follow it, but perhaps I can use it against you. The favorite verse is Matthew chapter 7, where it says, judge not, and that's all they do. But the first 5 verses are about not judging, but then the immediate following verse, Matthew chapter 7, verse 6, is do not cast your pearls before swine, or give what is holy to dogs. And the irony is...
and that's what I was telling my aunt the other day, because I'm telling her, like, you can't... We're not supposed to, just because we're not supposed to judge people doesn't mean, because Ephesians 5:11 says the same thing. Like, let me go to the verse, because you niggas don't know your Bible, unfortunately. But I am the Baptist one, so we study our Bibles. Abstain from participating in, endorsing, or associating with sinful and unproductive actions. All right? That's what it says. So just because you can't judge somebody doesn't mean you're supposed to support their fucking homosexuality. That's what we was talking about.
So Jesus is commanding us, his disciples, not to give sacred things to those who will not appreciate them, which requires to obey that command and to not, give pearls to swine. You have to make a judgment. So 5 verses about not judging, and then a verse that commands us to do something that holds as a prerequisite making a judgment. So obviously, I think the interpretation is, don't make sinful judgments, but not all judgment is sinful. There's a way of being like judgmentalism versus judgment. What is discernment other than judgment? Like we're called and commanded, expected to be discerning and to make righteous judgments. So then the only question left, so there's good judgment, bad judgment, righteous judgment, sinful judgment. So then the only question left is prejudgment. But when it comes to prejudgment, it's again not inherently sinful to say, I run a business, and I've hired, over the course of the last 20 years of running this business, I've hired 100 employees under the age of 25, and 98 of them have stolen from the company. Like if that guy says, like he decides from now on I'm not going to hire kids, I'm going to hire guys who are older. Like we wouldn't say that that's sinful,
right?
It's like, well, but not all 22-year-olds, steal money from the company,
right?
Of course, help, I'm being overwhelmed by ants. Not all ants, so there's a way of doing that without being mean-spirited, without being hateful, and yet still it is technically prejudice, but not in the sinful negative connotation of mean-spirited or unjustifiable universal hatred towards an entire class of people, but it's simply exercising prejudgment. And I think that we can do that, not just race would just be one category, but you can do that in a number of cases. And I think that instinctively, without even realizing it, we already do that.
Right.
And so then to come up with some kind of propaganda that says, so you can do this thing that everybody's instinctively doing all along, but you can't do it in this one category. And that one category
is race.
It actually kind of matters. It kind of matters that you are able to follow your better judgment and I'm not going to go to that side of town at this particular time of day.
Literally what I just said.
In a way, it seems like even a recipe for a liability.
And what's funny is, like, even though my aunt will advocate for that type of blindness, we don't live near none of that niggatry that go on. We don't live none of that goofy shit. All right. We live nice, tucked away in the hills type shit. Like there is no so it's funny when people say that, but they don't. They make sure they get away from them motherfuckers.
I really shouldn't have been on that train.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They make sure not to live over there.
The grave error is the individualism. That I think the germ of the problem is in individualism, where it says that individualism is the way of grouping people. And it says that
Whoa. What's that?
Goofy
I just put
ass
the budgeting
commercial.
app in base 44. Guys.
society, how is society constructed? Out of what composite? It's constructed out of a composite of individual human beings, the individual, which is sort of like an abstract quality. And it says that an individual, inherent in individualism is that you're grown up because you're rational and can make decisions and have responsibility. But it also says that you're not deeply influenced and connected to other people. And so for me, I think from the point of view of race, we have to depart from individualism, starting with the family, which is to say that, you know, me, I'm a 27-year-old man, but I wasn't born an adult man. I was born a baby to two parents, to a mother and a father, just like they were born to a mother and a father. And our mothers and fathers imprint on us our habits, our way of speaking, certain characteristics. You know, if you see a tall person, what is one of the first questions you say? If you see a really tall person, oh, your parents must be really tall. A very smart person or musician, oh, who are your parents? And is not race but kind of a collection of people that descend from the same forefathers?
Yeah.
And have these kinds of cultural groupings, like, and there's something interesting about prejudice, which
all
is
the families. The Bible, there's like all the families of the earth,
right.
right? Like the nation is an extended family. So like in some sense, you can say that races are different families writ large,
Extended families, and yet it only makes common sense because they come from the same place. They're ultimately the races. The white people come from Europe. And within the white people, the Nords come from Northern Europe, the Meds come from Southern Europe, the Slavs come from Eastern Europe, the Asians come from Asia, the black people come from Africa. Even the black people in Haiti, Dominican Republic, they come from Africa. So it is, in a sense, an extended family. And I would say that even as far as prejudice is concerned, there's something else interesting that happens, which is I find when I order an Uber in Chicago, and I get a black driver, they have the same skin color. They're of the same race.
Shout out to New Revolution with the follow. I see you, brother.
How they dress and speak is going to change what my prejudice is. Because if they speak in African-American vernacular English, and if they're dressed like a Chicagoan from the South Side, I know I'm going to maybe be in for a bumpy ride. Driving on
Might
the
be.
shoulder. I don't know where we're going.
Might be in the car with, what's that nigga name? Damn, what's that nigga name that, damn, little, fuck, Chief Keef nigga? I forgot his name. Anyways, he might be
But
ducking
if
and
they start
dodging.
speaking in an African accent and they're wearing different clothes, I have a completely different prejudice. And I say, you're probably a student. You're probably the child of a doctor or something on a visa.
Yeah.
And I think that as far
And I can definitely contest to this. Well, agree because my boy is African, and you know they don't play around.
as these kinds of stereotypes
don't
are
play.
concerned, I've always
They don't
thought
play.
of it as economizing on information, which is that you don't know everything about every person that you come into contact with. We make assumptions, generalizations based on a variety of things. And, you know, that speaks to the fact that it's not necessarily the color of that person, but it's kind of like the behavior of their tribe,
right?
so to speak. And if you see an African-American, it's kind of funny. We talk about race. We jump right to, if you're walking down an alley at night, and you see, you know, but that's naturally, we tend to associate race with racism and the sensitivity around race to prejudice. When we see
Hey, when they keep
black
saying
people,
African
it's not
American,
their skin
thank you.
color.
Say black people. Damn.
It's a number of things that indicate you're part of a certain cultural milieu. You're part of a certain tribe. Because I think anybody recognizes that if you see, like I said, a black person from Africa, it's a whole different set of stereotypes and expectations. Even if you see an African American and maybe they just are wearing different clothes, you might say, oh, this is maybe a different sort of a person. And I think that,
Or if they're wearing glasses, there was a
shit.
Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where Larry has a black friend and he discovers like that if he puts on fake glasses, he
Brock,
can get
with
into,
the follow, I see you,
any
brother.
room,
Right,
everyone
right.
immediately starts treating him differently. So
Yeah, or wearing a backpack or, a
Right,
polo shirt or whatever. And I think that speaks to, I think it elucidates when there's this preoccupation in the country with racism. You have to actually break down what we mean by that. And prejudice is always associated with that, and stereotyping and generalizations. I think at this point, everybody recognizes there's almost nothing wrong with that in itself.
No, because that's how
There's
you
nothing
survive.
wrong actually with stereotyping by itself. The problem is when
That's what I
you
was
treat
talking about
people
earlier.
unfairly based on that,
Right.
or you don't give people a chance. I
or
think.
somebody breaks the stereotype and you won't let them. You won't
Right.
let them break the stereotype.
Right.
It's like, this person really is remarkable, really is an exception.
Exactly.
And I just refuse to allow for any exceptions.
That's crazy.
Warning, this product.
No, I definitely, that's what I was talking about earlier. Stereotyping saves your life. Being racist saves your life, because like Nick and Joe was just joking about, why the fuck would you go down that dark alley with that nigga waiting there? Like, I'm not even, and that's what I be trying to tell niggas.
To be
I don't go anywhere without my shit on me, ever. I don't go anywhere without and I have my shit on me every time I go outside. I leave my damn house, I have some shit on me. So why the fuck would I even encourage somebody else to do some dumb shit like that? I would never do no shit like that. I already know. Daquan might be hurting right now. He might do fucking got robbed by the plug, and now he might need a quick lick. I already know. He ain't gonna get me though.
oops. We also have a capacity as individuals.
I'm gonna take the long way.
to be independent and to have kind of a unique taste or whatever. So I don't think they're necessarily mutually exclusive in that way. People think it's all or nothing. Either somebody walks into a shop and we're going to say, we're so race blind, I don't even know what color that person is. I have no idea what to expect. Versus, oh, I see a person of a certain color, I know exactly what they're about. I think everyone recognizes there's a position in the middle,
Yeah,
which is realistic.
agreed. So I've come to the point where I tell people I'm not a race essentialist. Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, Judaism, like those things would be more important to me. So religion would trump race. So I'm not a race essentialist. I'm also not a racial determinist. I don't think things change in 15 minutes. But we talked about this offline. But I do think that that things can change over time. And so I'm not fatalistic that it's set in the stars that every race will be exactly as it is today for all of time. I think that people can change, albeit slowly. So not a race essentialist, not a race determinist, but I think, race realist is probably the best term that I've heard so far. I think even with that, there's some baggage attached, that ways that I would want to distinguish myself, but I think I'm fairly comfortable using that label. And, for myself as a Christian and a pastor, like I always want to be able to account for things biblically, and one of the passages that I think of, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I'm sure you're probably familiar, but in Titus, the very beginning of, Paul's letter to Titus, kind of like Timothy, another young man in the faith, he opens up by saying, "This is why I left you in Crete, the Isle of Crete, to put what remains in order, appointing elders in all the churches." And then he goes in the first chapter into the qualifications for an elder in the church. And then a little later in the letter to Titus, and this is all in the New Testament, Paul, he doesn't actually say it himself, but he's quoting one of the Cretan prophets. He says, "One of your own said, all Cretans are gluttons, liars, and lazy beasts." But then he does say, "And this is true." It's like, based Apostle Paul, so like, but here's the thing that I think you have to hold in tension, to be fair. So the quote from a Cretan prophet is, "Hey, I'm Cretan myself, but let's be honest, Cretans suck, and they suck in particular ways, not just generally, but they're known for these particular things. They're lazy. They're beastly, so maybe low
IQ?
impulse control.
Low IQ?
They're impulsive. and they're gluttons,
Irrational,
so
emotional.
indulgent, and dishonest, so these kinds of things. And the Apostle Paul validates that and says, he nailed it. This is true. Yet, holding an intention at the very same time, the opening to the letters, this is why I left you in Crete, to put what remains in order, appointing elders in all the churches. And here are the qualifications for being an elder, a pastor, a bishop in the church of Christ. Well, who is Titus going to find to meet these qualifications to appoint as elders in Cretan churches? Cretans. So I take that to mean like the Apostle Paul on the one hand is saying in general, right, which is different than universal, but in general, the Cretans, as a people collectively, are not great. And not just in a general sense, like generally, but not in a vague sense, but in these particular areas, there are particular sins that are besetting and generally true of the Cretan people as a whole, not just this one Cretan as an individual, but no, you could actually describe the Cretans collectively in these negative
Eugene,
ways,
with the
and you would be generally right. And yet, one, because that's general, not universal, there will always be exceptions. And two, because of the power of the gospel, Christ actually changes hearts. I think that there will be some Cretans that will be fit to be ministers. And this is why I left you there, to put that. And I feel like we can do that. And I can do that, honestly, I can do it with Europeans. And I wouldn't say historically, I wouldn't say King Alfred is what I'm about to, describe white people. But today, I would say, and I could say all people. And you have to understand the disclaimer. All people, a generalization. Of course, there are exceptions. But in a general sense, I would say all white people are suicidal, toxic empathy, and cowardly. And that's why the West is falling apart. And then I feel like I could also say all black people are impulsive.
Working with different teams can get messy. Here's how a Sonic.
What the fuck are you talking about? Imagine. Imagine.
Perfect.
Don't spike your cortisol, guys. You gotta. That's the one thing I can take from Clav. Don't spike your cortisol. Keep your cortisol low, guys.
List some particular sins, and again, in general, of course, there are exceptions. I'm not thinking of Thomas Sowell. Not thinking of Clarence Thomas. And I think I could also, to go one step further, say all Jews are subversive. And, there would, of course, be some exceptions there as well. But the point is, I think the Bible actually has a category for that, all Cretans. So I'm not just being, and I can say those things and not say, and therefore I hate them, or I wish them harm,
Right.
or I would mistreat them as a lower class of, or deprive them of certain rights. But I can still prejudge. I know that among these people, because the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, it's just, race is a tribe, it's an extended family, and I know that this family has these kinds of characteristics, both good and bad. Here are some of the bad ones in particular, and so if this is a black man who's a member of my church and a friend, I'm not thinking about any of that.
Right.
I'm thinking about what I know at the individual level because I individually know him.
Right.
But if it's a perfect stranger and I've never met before, then I'm thinking of, and I do this with white people. I meet a random white person and in 2025, and I'm thinking, this guy's probably a cuck. Probably cowardly, probably, this, that, and the other. And I have a fairly high statistical chance of being right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I don't think that that's mean. I don't think that's a sin.
No.
But nobody's gonna care that he said that white people are cucked out and they're cowardly and they're suicidal. Nobody's gonna care about that. They're only gonna be like, "Did you hear how he said we were impulsive and lazy? Oh my god."
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that.
Oh my
favorite
God.
Quote is from Sam Francis. I'm sure you heard me say this, but
Oh my god, he said
I
we
think it was
were
Pat
lazy
Buchanan,
and
actually. He said,
impulsive.
race is not everything, but it isn't nothing.
Yeah.
And I think everyone recognizes that it's at somewhere in between, because it would be ridiculous to say that we can't make any generalizations, because you can make generalizations about anything. You can make generalizations about people from different generations, boomers, millennials, Zoomers.
Right.
You make generalizations about people that live in California. You can make, And yes, that also applies to the races also as a distinct group. And we have layers of identity, you know, as Americans, as people of a certain generation, people of a certain race. And of course, there are certain attitudes that come with that, attitudes, behaviors. And at the same time, you'd recognize it would be ignorant to say that, like you said, applies universally to every single member.
Right.
And that is so vilified then. If you make any generalization, they're saying you're ignorantly applying that to everyone in all cases with no exceptions, and you're doing it in a hateful way, irrationally, because of some base xenophobia. Because
they say it's two things. One, you're dumb and ignorant, but also you're mean and malicious.
It's hateful and pointed,
right.
Yeah. When it really isn't. I mean, on some level, we have to audit our society if we want to make things better for anyone. And every group has their strengths and weaknesses. Every group.
Look, you want to make it to the playoffs. You want to make it to the championships. You get into we get into the meeting room and we talk and we break down film and we say, okay, he scores a lot. He scores efficiently. We need to get him the ball a lot. This is how you start winning. When you start breaking it down like that. He scores a lot. We need to get him. He needs to touch the ball all the time for scoring. Okay, he doesn't get turnovers. He needs to dribble the ball all the time. He needs to be setting everybody else up. Okay, he grabs the most boards. He needs to be starting. This is how you start winning championships. When you start breaking down and see what everybody does and being real and honest about what's going on. That's how you win.
Has their, you know, things that's just how they do these things.
Look, you niggas are,
you know,
gotta
like
relax.
You would say with white people, clearly white people have lots of problems, and you're able to say that very freely. You know, what you just said.
Yeah, the first part was easy.
Yes.
The next part, even Nick Fuentes, I noticed you're like, what's he going to say?
And what's funny is because what you said will be clipped.
It will
Not
be.
the part where you said whites are cowardly.
Correct. Right, I just said that
where you
too.
said blacks are lazy.
That's right.
Why? We all know why. But it's true. You could say that whites have a lot of problems. Blacks obviously have a lot of problems. Jews have problems. Muslims have problems. But we exist also.
But not the same problems, which is kind of part of what I was getting at. It wasn't just all Cretans are bad.
Right.
But in these particular ways, and it helps to know.
Right.
It helps to know.
Well, because they're descriptive, they're qualitative. It's not a put down and saying you're bad, you're less than, you're inferior, but it's saying that
it's a constructive
and
criticism.
I like to use the word sin because I do think that they are kind of like concentrated sins.
They are. Yeah. Particular sins that are sadly generally accurate in describing a particular people.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think it does us any good to ignore those things. But the reason it is the way it is, these like double standards, because that's also where we enter in on the subject of race is
picked a great name, but
these funky ass commercials. What the fuck?
We talk about race naturally. People talk about racism. How is it wrong to acknowledge race? How is it wrong to talk about race? And then it naturally leads into how the particular races are treated differently. And some say that there's racism against the non-whites by the whites. Increasingly, people say it's in reverse. It's gone so far in the other direction. Mm-hmm. But I think what is glaring is the historical context.
I think it's okay. I think everybody can be racist but white people.
Which people often miss. Maybe on our side, people don't talk about or they refuse to acknowledge, is that we're coming up on maybe the end of 500 years of preeminence by Europeans, by whites. That's sort of the elephant in the room. They're like non-whites, that's their preoccupation. And whites, because we are white, don't maybe even realize the gravity of this. But this has not always been the way of the world.
Right. Because
at various points in time, the Ottoman Turks were the pinnacle of civilization, or the Islamic Caliphate, or the Chinese. And at various times, the relative distribution of wealth and power was different, meaning that maybe there was some parity between the Orient and the West. And of course, these uncontacted, more primitive civilizations like Africa and America didn't have to deal with white people. But we're talking about 500 years of whites because of the Industrial Revolution, because of the Enlightenment, rapidly gaining relative power and then imposing that power on other people and systematizing that power. And it's in this context, this is where you get this Marxist definition of racism where they say, well, it's prejudice plus power. And the power is sort of critical.
Right.
Because
which is why like a black person, a minority can't be racist.
Right. Because
only white people can be racist.
Well, because they say, well, you can't inflict these like attitudes on people using power either overtly or in a more subtle way. And I would say that, you know, that is, that's just kind of like rhetoric. I mean, to me, it is obviously true. And it's even also true to this day that, that European civilization predominates, but it doesn't make it any less true what's happening with these other people,
right.
The black people. And by the way, I would say to the contrary, it almost proves what we're saying about these groups or the disparities between them, because the sensitivity lies in that black and brown people and even Asians on some level have been under the heel of the whites for 500 years. And the way they say it is like they drew the short end of the stick. It's because whites are violent or whites are cruel. I would say it's because whites were more developed. That's really, that's the elephant in the room.
I was say you can't say more cruel because niggas had Genghis Khan and fucking Attila the Hun. Yeah, you don't want to know about them niggas. And then they had Vlad the Impaler. It was a lot of niggas. It was a lot of deadly ass niggas that weren't white. We had Shaka Zulu. Come on, bro. Y'all thought he was fake?
Nobody wants to. Because where even do you get the power dynamic?
Right.
It's that whites were able
That's right.
to inflict on other people because of their technological prowess, their organization, their societal development. And these other civilizations were weak. You know, Columbus Day, we're shooting this around Columbus Day. It's not that they weren't willing to inflict that, they couldn't.
That's right.
And they couldn't because they didn't have our level of development.
And with anyone that they could, they did.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Like, it wasn't missiles, but it was rocks or whatever. But they, I mean, like you think of, you know, historically Africa, it's not like a bunch of Europeans were running through the jungle, you know, and capturing people. They were lined up on the beach to be sold by other blacks.
Right.
You know, so everybody has been oppressive.
Right.
White people just did it exceedingly well.
Yes, excelled at organized violence, which
Right.
is the highest. It's basically in terms of human activity, it's the highest aspiration. You know, Patton had a quote like this: "It's the highest thing that a person can aspire to," because, I mean, that's ultimately what the history of humanity is conflict, organized conflict between groups. And so there's a reckoning now about this. And, you know, the browns and blacks are saying, well, we have been subjugated and we have drawn the short end of the stick. We have less resources, less power. And that means that our lives and organizations have been dictated to us by whites. And whites are saying, well, there's a reason for that.
Right.
And you sort of see these things now playing out within America, now that we have a very diverse country.
Right.
And I think that regardless, this is an inflection point for the history of the world because it's always been a clash of civilizations. But now I think for the first time, the clash is happening on the interior. It's happening from within. It's happening inside the border through politics.
I've taken methylene blue because it
Hey, you.
off your order by going to Nutricell.store.
And so it's sort of a difficult way to look at it because our generation, we're from different generations, but closely together in the grand scheme of things. You know, we've been brought up with this rhetoric that's been meant to soften the edges of the racial divide. And so I think we're coming at it with like basically an ahistorical perspective. Because the other thing that people don't want to acknowledge is that everyone for all time, except for the past 30 years, was like a vile racist, according to our standards.
Right.
Even George Washington, even Thomas Jefferson, even Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln, he was absolutely a white supremacist. There was like no debating it, and was really uncharitable in a lot of ways. That like
He wanted to
R.L.
send us
Dabney,
back.
guys who defended, the Southern Presbyterian Christian men. And
I mean,
I believe they
wasn't a
were
bad
good.
idea.
And I'm not going to apologize for my Christian fathers, but
I'm glad he
they
did it.
were defending the slavery, but not the slave trade. Like R.L. Dabney, he thought that the slave trade was a breach of like Exodus chapter 21 and certain biblical principles of man stealing and those things. But he had ways of, it wasn't just arbitrary. Like he had arguments, so he had ways of articulating. Well, okay, the man stealer is punishable according to Exodus 21 by death. Anyone found in possession of someone who was stolen. But that's kind of like a 1 degree of separation. What do you do when it's the third generation of people who their grandfather or even fourth generation, great-grandfather was stolen by these people, this tribe that defeated this tribe and sold them to this other tribe. Then they sold them to Jews. Then Jews sold them to Europeans, and so he was basically saying, like, at this point, many of the slaves in America, they only speak English. They're Christians now. They've been catechized. They're actually participating in these white churches as members, brothers in Christ. Yes, Monday through Saturday, there's still a master-slave dynamic. Ephesians 6 talks to this. It's in the Bible. But they are our brothers in Christ. They're in the church. They only speak English. Where are they going to go? Abraham Lincoln was like, well, maybe we can drop them off in Africa, which is actually really inhumane. I mean, they'd be dropped off, like 3 generations later, probably thousands of miles from where their ancestors were taken, can't even speak the language, have no, it's really cruel.
We
so
fucked.
the question is like, okay, well, if we free the slaves, but we're not also, sending them back across, the ocean, then where do they go here? And, there were some guys who suggested, well, we can send them out west, and give them, and Abraham Lincoln and some of the northern guys were like, no. And they were like, why? Because we want to settle that area and we don't want them as neighbors. So they were like, they have to be freed. And they also still have to stay right next door to all the Southerners. And, and so the South was like, wait, what? Like, I don't understand. And it's like, why? You really love black people, right? And they're like, no, that's not our position. We hate them. We just don't want them to, to be enslaved. And also we don't want you guys to succeed. So but the point is, like, you look back and it's like anybody who's labeled as a racist today is pretty much like a liberal by comparison to just 100 years ago, what the average person thought. I don't think there's a racist, like true racist alive currently.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if there are, they're exceedingly rare.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't even know that history.
Right.
That it's sort of like with World War II and the Holocaust. Like many people think we went to World War II to stop the Holocaust.
Right.
In the same way that people think we went to war to free the slaves,
Right.
For the good of humanity.
Imagine.
It's cute.
And it's a nice story.
You almost don't want to pop the bubble for them. Just leave them there. Let them think it.
Yeah, but no, and I like that you said that. People don't even know. Abraham Lincoln was committed to creating colonies where we could send all the black people in either Africa or Central America.
Yeah, I told you
and
he
the only
wanted to
reason
send us
it didn't
back.
happen is because he died when he was trying to do it. And there was very contentious inside the government. But that was the original plan. And then even beyond the plan, to repatriate them for hundreds of years. All the presidents said there will never be legal, social equality, political equality between the whites and the blacks in the same political, the body politic. They just said that's just never going to happen. And what has happened since is basically out of white guilt.
Mm-hmm.
We have come up with now this suicidal ideology where, and by the way, it's not even sufficient that we integrate the people that were forcibly brought here, which arguably might be some form of a reparation. I'm not making that argument, but some might argue, well, these people are brought here against their will. Now you have to integrate them. Okay.
Real quick, though, what you would say, what's the real reparation? You get to live in America.
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
Bless. Like, what a privilege. Privilege for me, privilege for you. Like, the richest black
I'm lit.
people on God's green earth.
Shit, I'm lit.
African
I ain't got to
fucking-
I ain't got to go to the fucking well to get no fucking water. I ain't got to lock the gate so the lion don't jump over and attack me. I don't got to, worry about niggas eating each other in the fucking woods. I don't got to worry about that shit. I just, get in my car and go to work and shit. Gotta $2,500 computer, get on the stream, and relax. Got internet and shit over here.
Haiti, Africa. I mean, take your pick.
Go ahead.
But yeah, no.
Good.
Arguably, we
Straight.
would have to do that. But now what we're talking about is making America a majority non-white country. Who thinks that's a good idea?
Right.
Is there one person who thinks that America will get better? And for who? Certainly not for the native people living here, not for the white people, probably not even for the black people.
Right.
The only people this is good for is the foreigners themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting also is that...
Because you got to understand, it's not like we're having way more kids than the white people. We're not having kids either. We're getting outpaced by the foreigners too. So you niggas keep thinking, oh, the white people are about to get erased. Nigga, you're about to get erased. The fuck? It's only 13% of us, nigga.
You were in this post-racial project out of an abundance of white guilt. We feel sorry for the colonized, the indigenous, the poor of the world. We're bringing them here. It makes white people feel better about themselves to have that around. And I think, though, that, and this is an important distinction, a lot of the people that propagated this, it was kind of sold to them as not actually what it is. Because what it is that there's going to be no majority, no dominant cultural force, there won't be
No hegemony.
a plurality of any group. It will be completely diverse. But it was sold to them as like whites plus, white country with some diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even that would be acceptable. And I was talking about this, I think, with Gavin McInnes. It's like if you're in a neighborhood of all white people and one black family moves in and they're nice and well-mannered and respectful, would anyone really have a problem with that?
No.
If it was all whites and some black people? I don't think so. Not as long as everybody was following the laws. Or for that matter, an Indian family or a Chinese family or Mexican family. I don't think.
I have a Muslim family in my neighborhood that I used to stay in. They were such nice people. Very nice people.
So.
And what's so funny, what I found in my neighborhood was so funny is that it was all black people, but we were like actually black. We wasn't niggas. So like it was no walking outside, sagging niggas just walking outside, smoking and shit, hanging out and shit. Like it wasn't none of that niggatry going on. So it's like the first time I've ever seen some shit like that. Where it's just all, and I think we had like one white family in there that lived like down the hill or some shit, but everybody else was black. Yeah, it was some people like, I ain't never seen that shit before, I'm trying to tell you. And it gives us a fucking commercial.
Dear Dr. Hansen.
But yeah, we had one like Muslim family live down the hill, down the street, straight. They was cool.
The Fuentes.
Right, like the Fuentes clan. We're nice enough, They were, the Fuenteses were drug addicts. My grandfather was a heroin addict, so maybe not the best, but over generations we assimilate, right? But, and maybe it's two families. Okay, that's not so bad. I mean, it's 90% white. But the question is, what happens when that neighborhood becomes 90-10 in the other direction?
Right.
Now, not so comfortable. And that's really the way that I like to frame the race issue in America. Historically, it was whites with some blacks.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's going to be all non-whites with some whites.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole different story. That's a whole different country. That's a different dynamic. You can't call that immigration. And you start to say that, well, we now are actually losing something that we're entitled to, which is the ability to have our way of life represented. Mm-hmm. And you think about a future where there will be Chinatown in America. Right. There will be Little India, Little Haiti, Little Cuba, whatever. Will there even be a single city or suburb that is meaningfully European or white, where they actually have any kind of ethnic heritage, cultural heritage? I think the answer is no on this timeline.
Right.
And that has already happened, by the way, in Canada.
Yeah.
In Canada, they have imported
like
50% of their population in the past 25 years. And it is entire cities and towns that have been taken over where there are literally no white people.
Even in the
and
UK,
that is
they've
by
been overrun by the Jeets. Like
definition, the suicide of a country.
Yeah.
So There's a lot that could be said about race, excesses of racism or identitarian thought, identifying too much with race. And these things are not quantitative. You can't say how white is a person. You could go to their genetics, but people have a different phenotype,
Right.
different characteristics and things like that. So it's qualitative and it's rough. But we could say that certainly we're not racial enough. Let's put it that way. Nobody would argue that we should be a completely racial society. Whites only. We only want, and everyone that isn't white, we don't like. I don't think anyone's saying that.
Right.
But people are saying the country's becoming not racial enough. And white people in particular do not have enough of an affinity or pride in themselves
Right.
to even protect the identity of their nation. That's really the issue.
That's very well said.
Yeah.
So let's spend maybe the second half of the episode, but one final big idea. So we've talked about race, but I'd be really curious because I've heard some of those things from you before, and I pretty much agree with all of it. Like sometimes you're in the final segment of the show, it's the super chats. You're on your seventh hour and getting a little loosey goosey, and so you'll word it in ways that I wouldn't word it. But I think your position I agree with. But race aside, let's now talk about how do you? Because I don't hear you talk about this as much. How do you account for race? How do you account for why are there different? As a Christian, you believe the Bible, right? But you're also like you're not a Neanderthal. You believe the Bible. You also have your sense perception and reason and science and those kinds of things. So I'd just be curious. You're a bright guy. How do you account for race? The fact that we have different races, different strengths, different weaknesses. Some have fared better than others. How do you, in a way that holds the Bible, doesn't contradict it, but then also accounting for other things? How do you account for race?
Well, I think the origin of the races is that you go back to the original people that were created by God and descended from Adam, and they went out into the world. And I think they reflect the different tribes, different descendants. And as far as their relative position, well, first I would say that I always go back to the Tower of Babel. When people talk about the universalism of Christianity, I go back to the idea that God wants actually for there to be nations. He created the nations.
Correct.
There was a point where we're all coming together and then the people were scattered.
It wasn't good.
Right.
Like I always tell people, it was a judgment. So there were two sins. It says, let's build, a tower that stretches to the heavens so that we can be as God and make a great name for ourselves. So one sin, arrogance, pride, trying to deify themselves, be as God. And so God judges. There's a judgment. Babel is a judgment for the sin of arrogance. However, that's not the only sin. It also says, they finish and say, lest we be scattered over the face of the earth. And I do think that actually represents the second sin. First sin, arrogance, tower that stretches to the heavens, make a name for ourselves, be as God. Second sin, not be scattered over the face of the earth. Well, the dominion mandate that was given to Adam in the garden was be fruitful and multiply and subdue the whole earth. Like the original plan was not just that there would be a lot of people, but that these people would ultimately spread out and fill up the whole earth. And so then the Tower of Babel, you literally have them saying the very thing that God commanded Adam to do, let's not do it. Let's build this tower and make this great name for ourselves so that we can congregate and stagnate and bottleneck and not fulfill the very thing that God commanded our ancestor Adam to do so that we would not be spread out over the earth. So I think two sins. One, arrogance, let's be like God. Two, let's not fulfill the dominion mandate and spread out. Because I actually think that without the Tower of Babel, God's providential plan likely would have resulted in different dialects, which would have evolved into different languages. And, some people would live in the mountains and some people in cold regions and hot regions and seafaring people. And over time, just the different distinctions of the geography itself and different places and different climates and being, separated from people,
I feel like the only thing that really helps it we would literally have to force everybody to be Christian. Like we would literally have to force motherfuckers to be Christian, and force them to go and read go to church, study and shit. We would have to force niggas to do that shit. That's the only way I feel like that would really cancel anything out.
Would have would have lent to. It all would have snowballed into different languages, different cultures, different peoples, different people. So the nations were God's plan, and you literally have a group of people saying no. And so I think, when God confuses their languages, the way that I teach this, in our church and as a pastor is that you have a judgment for the sin of arrogance, and the second sin that I think people miss, the sin of not wanting to be fruitful, multiply, and spread out and fill the earth. And in that sense, it's a judgment, but it's a judgment that conceals, because God is exceedingly kind. It's a judgment that conceals a hidden mercy. Like within this judgment of confusing their languages so that they would disperse, there's also a mercy. And the mercy is, you guys are trying to get off the rails from my original plan. And I'm going to judge you for that sin of rebellion, but in such a way that it actually functions as a catalyst to more quickly fulfill my plan, which is all the plans of God, a good plan. You're welcome.
Yeah.
So back to you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard that angle before on the Tower of Babel.
What do you think? Crazy or?
No, I think that's true. I think that there's a lot in that story, and I agree with that. But I would say that as far as the disparities, a lot of it does come down to geography.
Yes.
I think that's a huge part of it. And
It is.
There's been many theories on this, and one of the most prominent theories is that the people of the North, because they have the winter, have to plan for the future.
Right.
And ultimately, that is what separates, in terms of IQ, in terms of development, it's that long-term planning.
Right.
Seems to be the difference maker, because where you have warmer climate and you don't have to plan for the winter, you just have game year-round. You never actually move beyond a nomadic society.
You, just you, building your app on base 44.
To an agrarian society. And without that, you don't even have a concept of the future. For a long time, there was like a famous post on 4chan that went viral, and who knows if it was real or fake, but it was a person who claimed to be someone who worked in Africa and said they literally do not have a word for the future. And we would give them money, we'd try to get them to plant seeds, but they just had no concept of sowing and reaping, no concept of kind of like
Delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification, right? That time preference. And of course, if people are just hunting and gathering all the time, there's really no need actually ever. It's all cyclical rather than progressive in a certain sense. And so this is why they say the Europeans developed the highest IQ, because they face these cold, tough winters. And they came with other things too. They had these very tight-knit clans, and other there's other selection biases there, but they say that basically it's a geographic determinism.
I like that. I've never heard that before, but that's a fucking great point, because facts, like when you have to worry about storing the food and getting enough food for everybody, you kind of have to think, I gotta save this, we gotta do that, can't just eat everything and know you're gonna be able to go out tomorrow and get some more, whereas they know they're just gonna go out and tomorrow and just do the same thing and get some more. So there's no reason for us to think ahead. Oh man.
And
Fuck.
Here's another example which I heard recently. They say that one of the reasons the American Indians practice so much cannibalism is because their diet consisted largely of corn. And they were starved of protein, actually, because their diet being mostly maize, it actually has no nutritional content. And so what they needed was protein from flesh. I guess they couldn't get it from animals. So that's why they developed this bloodthirst. I heard that on Twitter. I don't know if that's real or not, but
you heard it on Twitter.
So it must be. Must have some basis in reality. But so I think it almost always goes back to nutrition. It always goes back to geography. It goes back to the basics.
There actually are basic explanations, is what you're saying. So I think that's entirely true. The only thing that I would add to it, and I just want to hear your response, is I would also, put some stock in the biblical narrative, just like we did with Babel. But then, that's on the heels of also the three sons of Noah. So, a global flood in which everything that had the breath of air in its lungs was wiped out, is what the Bible says, Genesis 9:10. And except for Noah, his wife, 3 sons, and their 3 wives, 8 persons in all saved through the ark and the passage of water. And when the ark finally comes to rest, one of the sons is, he uncovers his father's nakedness. Now, I take that to mean that you look at Leviticus, you shall not uncover your father's nakedness. It's not like dad's naked and you point and laugh. It's to uncover your father's nakedness is to sleep with his wife. So I think it was a sexual immorality. And it seems as though Noah recognizes this around the time that his grandson is born, Canaan, and he says, "Cursed be Canaan." And I think part of the reason he says, "Cursed be Canaan," is I think there was probably something physical, like visibly detectable, that Noah saw. His grandson was like, "You slept with mom," like something like that. So that's not explicit in the text, but I think it's a plausible inference. Exegetically, it's allowed. It's not heresy. But the son is technically the grandson, Canaan, is cursed. Now, guys exegete it different ways. Some guys say that Ham, the father, Noah's son, and the father of Canaan, was generally cursed, and Canaan particularly cursed. And that, of course, comes to pass in the fact that Joshua, centuries later, wipes out all the Canaanites. Like, obviously, Canaan really was cursed and really did pay a heavy price. All the Canaanites wiped out by the Israelites. But then maybe a general curse for the father and all his other sons besides Canaan, the Hamites. But even if that's not, because some guys will say no, but it doesn't say cursed is Ham, and that's fine. I think that that's plausible also, that it was just a curse for Canaan, the grandson, and not for Ham. But what we can say for sure is even if Ham was not cursed, he wasn't blessed. Whereas the other two sons of Noah were blessed for doing the right thing and not uncovering their father's nakedness and actually correcting and rebuking their brother, when he did this wicked thing in the sight of the Lord. And, so one of them is particularly blessed, Japheth, and the other, Shem is partially blessed. But Ham is either cursed or at least not blessed. And that automatically is a hierarchy of blessing from the Lord. And so then their descendants and blah, 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 so on and so forth. And so I think there's some stock there. I think that in the finished work of Christ, though, I think he levels the playing field. So I really do think that in the finished work of Christ that he comes to make his blessings flow as far as the curse is found. And so if there was a curse of Ham, I don't think there is anymore. I think that's been broken. However, another one of those scenarios was like, you got to let him cook. Like if Ham and his descendants were cursed, or even just his two brothers were exceedingly blessed and he was not, but that was the state. That's a prophetic word from the Lord spoken through Noah, their father. If that was a state for centuries and centuries and centuries until Christ came, that has massive implications. And then if descendants of Ham, this curse is broken, but it wasn't even broken until 2,000 years ago, and it had all of its effects for centuries leading up to that. And even though it's broken, a lot of places in sub-Saharan Africa didn't even hear the gospel. Like Jesus came 2,000 years ago, but the gospel didn't come to certain regions until 200 years ago.
Right.
So it takes time. You know what I mean? So I think there's the geographic way of accounting, and I think there's true. I'm kind of both persuasions. So
I like the answer that Nick gave us with the geographical positions and why they had to do that, because it makes perfect sense. Like, understand, them niggas are still doing the same shit over there. They're still doing the same shit over there. All right, they are still doing this. So it's like it's hard to like argue the point because the niggas really are still doing that shit over there. But I wanted to end this right here because we only got like 15 more minutes of 20 more minutes left of this, or however, it's not long. But I wanted to at least hear some funny shit before I got off, and I know Myron's gonna make me laugh. So let's get right into this USC real quick.
With law enforcement and putting yourself in bad scenarios can lead to violence.
Yeah, putting yourself in a scenario like that could put you in more violence, but don't you think that the cop should have been more responsible before executing someone when it's your Second Amendment right to concealed carry?
Yeah, you can absolutely conceal carry, but you can't conceal carry while committing a felony.
Yeah, do you think a court would find that as a felony?
Yeah, he literally, he assaulted.
Someone puts their hand on someone's shoulder to ask them a question, it's like assault?
Well,
because in the context of that situation, I don't even know that a court would, if it's a jury trial, would find that was assault.
Well, actually he was, because what was happening was the Border Patrol agent was dealing with...
He was what?
Can I finish what I was going to say?
That wasn't a response. He was what? Are you saying
Well, I was
he
gonna
doing
finish, but you just
something, or-
interrupted.
Huh?
Yo, this nigga's retarded. I told you I was gonna make me laugh.
Okay. So basically, a Border Patrol agent was dealing with a woman. He pushed her. Then Alex Pretty interjected himself in the middle of that confrontation, put his hand on the Border Patrol agent. The Border Patrol agent grabbed him, tried to pepper spray him. He resisted, and that's when the
When did he
escalation
resist
began.
after he was pepper sprayed? He was already like on the ground. He got knocked down, and then past that point,
No, he
was
pepper
still
sprayed him
hitting
first.
Yeah, he pepper
tried to
sprayed
pepper spray him first.
Then he go to the ground,
Yep.
right? And then he's still getting hit by a gas canister.
Because he was resisting.
No, he wasn't. All four
He-
limbs
he wasn't
were on
resisting?
the ground. Moving around because you're getting hit isn't resisting.
He was resisting.
Is it resisting if I twitch when someone smacks me?
No, you're resisting when they try to grab your hand and you're fighting away from it, and they got to throw you to the ground to get
If
you
you
restrained.
don't know what's happening and there's people in all directions and they're giving unclear instructions?
He saw exactly what was happening because
How?
he was, the one.
pepper sprayed by your own admission just
Okay,
now. You just
hey,
said that.
Hey,
right?
you do realize that Alex Pretty came to the Border Patrol agent while he was dealing with the woman, so he knew who he was. He was obviously clearly marked
Are we
with
talking
a vest on.
pre or post? Pre or
What?
post pepper spray? Because I'm talking about when he got
He just said when the interaction first happened.
hit on the ground with the
Pre
canister.
pepper spray.
And you're
'cause-
saying he was resisting then when he was on the ground after he got pepper sprayed.
Okay,
right?
let's go by this play-by-play. Border
Yo, if you don't want to get blasted by Border Patrol, I would advise you leave them alone when they're doing an operation. I don't understand. It's like, I don't get it. Why would you, if the police are trying to arrest somebody, why would you get out your car, stop your car, get out, and go try to stop them from arrest? Like, I don't. It's like, what are you really trying to do?
Patrol agents are there doing an immigration enforcement operation in Minneapolis. The Border Patrol agent is dealing with a female agitator, someone, we don't know the exact facts there, but she was there impeding. As he's dealing with her, Alex Pretty comes up from his left, puts his hand on the Border Patrol agent now, and the woman's on the floor because he pushed her. Now that another person comes to him from his left, law enforcement is trained to, who is this guy? He's got to get this guy under some type of control. So he grabs him by the hand and tries to pepper spray him. When he pepper sprays him, that's when Alex Pretty starts resisting, and then other Border Patrol agents
You're
come
saying
into the fray.
resisting. How did he resist? Like pushing him? What's he doing?
He was trying to grab his hand, and
So
probably
he's
I'm
grabbing
assuming
onto a hand while after he's been pepper sprayed? Or
the Border Patrol agent tried to grab his wrist
and he pulls away?
to detain him or get him on the floor, and he was resisting. Yes.
After he's on the ground, he's already been pepper sprayed, though. That's why
He
I
was
said
still resisting.
post-pepper spray.
He was
That's
still
why I
resisting.
asked you before.
Pepper spray doesn't stop you from resisting. You just have some shit in your eye now. That doesn't stop your muscles from moving.
No, he was still resisting.
He's resisting by
Stupid.
moving on the ground on all fours like this.
Yes, and trying to get back up. Yes.
When was he trying to get back up? We just see him scuffling around while four people are on top of him, and they're all giving imprecise instructions.
Yeah. See, like
Also,
the problem
yeah.
is that like you just don't want to deal with the objective facts that he closed the distance on
Also,
the Border
does
Patrol agent.
resisting mean you
If
can
you
just
close, if you close the distance on the Border Patrol agent when they're lawfully dealing with another person, they're
Yeah.
going to probably grab you and try to detain you and put you
At
on the
what
floor because
point-
it's
okay.
officer safety. Then they found out they had a gun on this person. Okay, and that's when he got shot.
Why does him having a gun on his person means it's okay for him to get shot?
It's not about it being okay to get shot. It's about he committed a crime while armed and impeding law enforcement officers
Okay,
from
and
their
was
duties.
it necessary for the officer to
The
shoot
conversation
him
that-
to
do you
stop
understand?
him committing a crime?
That ends it right there, dude. He resisted.
He committed a
law
crime, so that
enforcement.
means you get to shoot him. If someone resists,
He committed
you
a
get to
crime
shoot
while he
him.
was armed.
It doesn't matter if you're just armed. He's not brandishing or a threat to the officer. If you have a gun on your person and you're caught shoplifting, the cops don't shoot you in Walmart. They try and detain and arrest you.
So here's the beauty, right? This is why there's case law on this topic. So progressive morons like you don't fuck things up for everybody else.
I'm not a progressive.
You are a
retard.
progressive moron. Because here's the thing. When it comes to law enforcement being involved in shootings, and I was describing this earlier with the other guy, 2020 hindsight, okay, is not applicable. What's applicable is what was known to the law enforcement officer at the time the use of force was conducted. And at the time, they heard gun, gun, gun. He was armed, and a shot went off. Now, we know that this shot went off when they took the gun off his person because the 6 hour that he had was, notorious for going off when it's not supposed to. But what matters is, what did the Border Patrol agents think that shot him at the time? Was it reasonable? And in many jurisdictions, that's going to be looked at as reasonable. It's a lawful shoot, man. Now, you could talk about the morality and say this is fucked up and this is so evil, etc. But the reality is he was impeding law enforcement. He committed a felony. He assaulted them at the time that happened, and he was armed. And he was doing this for weeks prior.
We don't even know if he would find that that's assault in any sense. Even if it was, you're just saying
you
just
cannot
saying
put your hands
he
on a
saw
border
that
patrol
there
agent.
was a gun.
Especially not during an
100%
operation. Are you
assault.
fucking sick?
You cannot put your hands on a federal law enforcement
That's like running up on a
when
police.
they're in the middle of an enforcement.
Bro, that's like running up on a police officer while they're arresting somebody and trying to put your hands on them. Just running up to them, like, nigga, you're going down immediately.
Operation. He was dealing with another suspect, and he put his hands on him. That's
If
assault
you're
all
going
day.
just
You
by
lose on
like
that.
straight letter of the law, though, anytime you like even touch someone, it could be considered a battery, right?
Don't touch federal agents when they're doing their jobs.
I said anyone, not federal agent.
Well,
right?
that's very important because that's pertinent to the facts. With the
Okay, but I'm
the
asking
fact
you
pattern here.
generally, as a matter of law, it would be battery if I just touch any person, like if I tap you on the shoulder, right? If you want
Every
to take it that
state is
literally,
different,
right?
but we're not here to discuss that. I'm here to tell you, you cannot touch it.
So you can't discuss the law that we're here to talk about now.
We're talking about a specific instance about Alex
Yeah,
Preddy
and I'm talking
and Border
about
Patrol
the law
agents. You're moving the
pertaining to
goalposts.
this instance
You're
regarding
moving the
assault
goalposts.
or battery.
You're moving the goalposts. We're talking about
No,
federal
we're talking
agents.
about what we started with, right?
See, yeah.
Next. Oh, God. Next. Next.
Yeah, dude,
Cooked.
We're talking about Alex Preddy, which means we're going to be talking about federal agents.
Are these
Really?
pigtails?
I thought we were
I hope
talking
these
about
aren't
uniforms.
pigtails.
Holy shit, dude.
The way you see
Loki?
an idea
Oh,
is
no.
mind.
I hope these aren't pigtails.
Incredible. They just let anybody in here, huh? Fuck.
Yeah, it's a public space, not a fascist police state like you want. So
No,
yeah,
I meant as in like USC. Like they got to increase
yeah.
the standards,
I'm
bro.
not a member of USC, you fucking idiot.
You go to school here, right?
No.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay, all right.
No.
You guys are redeemed a bit then, because this guy is incredibly retarded.
Yeah, you're so retarded. You have to make so many assumptions, and you're wrong about all of them. You can't even talk about.
I
Like,
cited law. I gave you the fact pattern. I told you why he got shot. I told you exactly what happened, play by play, and you're still sitting here saying, "Well, is this
heard
still
gun
assault?"
and they didn't take the broad totality of circumstances in the situation, right? Because you're saying he heard a gun, therefore it's legal. But any case, they're going to look at the broad totality of circumstances.
Yes.
When 6 people are on the ground, you have a clear view that the gun is in another officer's hand, that he is not.
They didn't know that at the
brandishing
time.
firearm.
The officers that
Yeah,
shot
they
didn't
did.
know
He was
that.
looking right
See,
at him. You
that's
can
why
go
you
to
don't. See,
camera
that's the
and you can
problem.
look at
You
the
didn't even.
exact
The officers
angle,
that shot
and
didn't know
You
that.
can see him looking over the cop's body right there. You can see he doesn't have a gun.
The
He's in clear view the entire
agents
time.
that shot
He's never
did not
obscured.
see. The agents that shot did not see Preddy get disarmed. All they heard was a gunshot.
Yeah, they did. One literally
No, they
took
didn't.
the gun.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, and then the
No,
other
they
one
didn't, because
watched
even
him take it.
even when paramedics got on the scene and were rendering aid, the agents that shot him said, "Hey, do we got the gun? Do we got the gun?" They still at that point didn't know.
But the paramedics didn't know that they had
No.
the gun, even though who didn't know?
He said, "Who didn't know?" Can we do one more?
Thank you. ICE did, or that's one make sure.
What's up?
Hey, so how many under ICE or that are detained? How many of them have criminal convictions? Do you know?
How many what?
How many of them have criminal convictions?
Who?
People detained under ICE currently.
People that
Well, if
Pe-
you're
people
illegal,
who are
you're a
currently
criminal.
Detained under ICE
Oh,
currently.
okay, the people
how
that
many
get
of them
arrested
have
by ICE?
criminal?
Did you think about that?
How many of them have the percentage? What's the
If
percentage?
you're
of
illegal, you're a
criminal
Some of
criminal.
them are
convictions?
criminal aliens. Some of them are not.
Well, there's a number. Do you know the number?
I don't know the exact percentage.
If you're illegal.
70% of them have no criminal convictions.
Okay.
Okay, so do you think that's a number that we need to really be clapping for ICE? Do you know that ICE actually shortened their training from 22 weeks to 8 weeks? Did you know that they also are requiring ICE agents to meet quotas, to meet 1,200 to 1,500 arrests per day, which
Good.
focuses more on quantity and not on quality?
Good.
Quality would insinuate that we need to focus on people with criminal backgrounds, violent criminal records.
We need to
so we
focus
can
on
deport
anybody
those
who's
people.
here illegally,
Do you know
brother.
all
I'm
that?
sorry.
Okay, so
Goofball.
is it illegal to come to the United States without authorization?
If you're undocumented, you're committing a civil infraction. If you come through the border, it is a federal crime. There are two different things.
Okay, so
So how many of them
number
have
one, it's
criminal?
not a civil
So
infraction.
you don't.
It's not a
So
civil
so
infraction.
you don't. Yeah,
at
it's
all.
a civil infraction.
It's not a civil
Oh,
infraction.
I'm sorry. You know the law. You don't understand that if you're here undocumented, you're just committing a civil infraction. If you cross the border, that's a federal crime. Do you know how we treat those?
How do you get here undocumented then without crossing the border? Huh, nigga?
two differently, right? You understand one is not crime and the other one is?
You know what's funny?
Do you understand that one is a crime and the other one isn't?
All right, can I
Do you,
respond?
do you understand? No, yes or no? Do you know that one is a crime, the other one isn't?
It is a crime to come here illegally.
No, it's
and
not.
or
It's
to
a civil
overstay your
infraction.
visa.
Is a civil infraction a crime? Is a civil infraction a crime? It's not that hard of a question. Yes or no?
Okay, so let me go ahead and
yes or no?
because
Is a civil infraction
okay,
a crime?
dude, you got to chill out
Dude,
for 2
it's
seconds.
just a
Because
yes or no
let me
brother,
go through this real quick.
Brother,
Let me go through this.
no,
You need
don't
to.
have to go
Yo,
through
yo,
nothing.
yo.
No, you don't have to go through
Shut the
nothing.
fuck up.
It's
I'm gonna
yes
say
or
what I
no.
gotta say.
I know. Hey, look,
Shut the fuck up.
Hey, you can tell me
All
to
right,
shut the fuck up,
I'm
but
gonna
you can't
finish
answer
saying
yes
what
or
I
no.
gotta say.
I guess
Because you don't even know what you're
hold on,
talking
hold
about.
on.
There's no
I
such
guess-
thing
I
as a
hold on,
civil
hold on.
infraction
Yes,
in the
civil
INA.
infractions exist, buddy. I
Turn
don't
this
know
guy's
if you
mic off real
understand this.
quick.
I don't know.
So
Okay,
so let me go ahead and because you won't be quiet for 2 seconds.
Because
all
you
right?
can answer a yes or
Here's
no
the issue
question.
here. Here's
You
the
can answer
issue.
a yes or no
You
question.
don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Is
Then let me
civil
tell.
infractions don't exist?
Do you?
Civil
Okay.
infractions don't exist?
Okay. Let me go ahead
You don't
and,
want basic
and deal with
facts.
this. Number one, there's no civil infraction of what you're talking
If
about.
you're undocumented,
You don't know what
in
you're
this
talking
country,
about.
You're committing a civil
If you come to the
infraction.
United States illegally, that is a crime.
If
If you
you're
overstay your
undocumented-
visa, that is a crime. It's a violation of the
you don't know about
INA.
visas?
You don't know what the fuck you're talking about because I've actually arrested people for this crime. I used to be
Wait.
working for HSI and ICE.
You're a
I know what I'm
survivor.
talking about. So you mentioning the civil infraction, that's not even a thing.
Civil
And this is the
infractions are not a
problem when
thing.
we have people like
Wow.
you that are so confident about their stupidity. You're
Hold on,
wrong
hold on.
in every single way.
You're
There's no
confident
such
about
thing
your
as a
stupidity.
civil
You didn't even know the
infraction.
numbers.
If they come here and they're illegal, they broke the law. So therefore,
Okay.
they will be
No,
deported
they
and dealt with
didn't. Being
accordingly.
here-
It's that simple. You cannot come into a country illegally. A country without borders is not a country. Okay?
I think
You're
it's
trying to sit
funny.
here and rewrite and be like, it's
hold on,
actually a
hold on,
civil
hold on.
infraction. No.
I think it's
It is
funny
a
that this
violation
I think
of
it's
Title
funny
8.
that
You don't
this
even
is
know what
called-
Title 8 is. You don't know
It's
what the
so
IN is.
funny.
You're just
so
over here
funny.
yapping.
Yeah, it's so funny. This is uncensored America, but you just shut my mic off. But
No,
okay,
no,
so look,
because
look,
you're
hold on.
asking,
But
you
no,
don't know what
because
you're
you can't
talking about.
answer a
You're
yes or no
wrong.
question.
You're
You
wrong.
can't have dialogue.
You have these shitty ass Jerry curls. You know.
He says you can't answer my question, nigga. You don't shut the fuck up. Like, how the fuck is he supposed to answer the question? You don't shut the fuck up. Fuck. All right, we're not gonna finish that. I'm not gonna lie to you. That is it for today. Oh my God, 12 hours a day, guys. That's how much I work. Okay, so bear with me. But I will see you boys on Friday. We're gonna cut it right there. Nice little fun talking about race with Joel and Nick. And I like the conversation that was had. It was very productive, and I understand where both of them are coming from. So it's an easy conversation to understand if you have the brain power and don't get your cortisol spiked up. All right. But yeah, I appreciate everybody for stopping by. All the follows I got today, my boy Revolution and Croak. Appreciate y'all. Friday we'll probably be watching Myron, and we'll probably be finishing this up with Myron and shit. So nothing too major, but it will be a fun Friday. It will be a fun Friday, I promise. But yeah, I appreciate everybody for coming by. I will see y'all boys Friday. Peace!
The bitch shaking it, showing it. You this, you that. We laughing at them together. Oh! So stop treating these mother like they mean something.
Let's go to TikTok.